All right, we're back with some more etching, or continued etching. Etching continued. It's been another hour, well, more like an hour and a half. I got a little distracted. So let's see how we're doing. This is as much as I'm going to do for tonight, for sure. And then I'm going to turn in. Ooh. So that's great. So I'm getting to the point where I've got pretty much most of the texture is coming off. So it's getting down to, I don't have to remember if I said in the first video that if you ever want an emu eggshell to be smooth, it's possible. It just takes a lot of sanding. So the outer layer is pebbly and dark, and then it gets progressively smoother and lighter. So we're getting towards the smooth, light portion, which is exciting because this is the part where you can actually, if you wanted to, you could add dye, and it'll actually take a variety of colors, not just black. Whereas with the outer shell, you can dye black. You can dye it a very dark green, make it darker green. You can dye it Okanagan wine and have it be maroony black, be a reddish black versus a greenish black. But you know, because dyes are additive colorants, you just add more and more on top of what's already there. You're not going to get it lighter unless you start adding white pigment. And we're not going to add white pigment in dyes because that's not how dyes work. That's called paint. And we're not going to paint these for the most part because you can't get the same kind of precision that you get with a wax, resist, and dye process. Most of the time the pigments that you get in paint are not going to be as intense and as vibrant and as bright as the pigments that you can get in dye. And because you can't use the same kind of varnish. The varnish that we're used to using on Pisanke are, of course, solvent-based varnishes. And sometimes a lot of them, not all, but a lot, if they come into contact with any latex, including latex gloves, or latex if you have paint that you put on it, won't cure. It won't dry fully. The varnish will just get like tacky and gross, and it'll never fully dry, and it'll never fully harden. And that is infuriating, especially if you don't know why that's happening. So I had that happen once when I used a pair of nitrile gloves. Sorry, the Nitryle versus the Nitrile. So some of them have latex in them. You know, which is great if you're working with acetone. If you're working with acetone, you want latex gloves. You don't want nitrile gloves because acetone will eat right through the nitrile. But if you're working with polyurethane-based varnish, maybe it's not the polyurethanes. I think it's actually the One Shot that does that. And I don't know what the chemical component is that causes that to happen, but it definitely does. So that's something to be aware of. Different gloves for different uses, right? Different tools for different functions. Oh, that's really interesting. So it's not quite there. It definitely needs another round of etching, but I'm going to go to bed. So this will just dry overnight. And then tomorrow I can get going on some more. And that is not surprising. 2 hours is really not that much. For etching, again, that's the downside of using just vinegar, is that it takes longer. The upside is that it's totally safe. It can go right down the drain, it can go on your skin, it can go in your eye. I mean, it would hurt if it goes in your eyes, and it does hurt if it goes in your skin, but it's not dangerous. It's just vinegar. Same stuff we use for making salad dressing. for, you know, etching eggs. You do you. Whatever you want to use your vinegar for. I buy it by the gallon jug. 2-gallon jugs. It's not expensive. And something to be aware of also if you're etching is that whatever kind of acid you're using, the more you use it, the more it interacts with an eggshell. Again, the more chemical process that goes on. That will use up. It will not use up the vinegar. The vinegar will still be in there. However, it will raise the acidity, or raise the pH. It'll raise the pH, which will make it less acid and less useful. So you will find that after, you know, a certain amount of etching, that you do want to switch out your vinegar and use fresh vinegar, because it'll stop doing what you want. Speaking of stopping doing what I want, I've got a little baking soda paste here that I mixed up that I'm going to use just to neutralize the acid, any acid that might be left on this part of the shell, because this part around the hole is etching a lot faster than the rest of it is. I don't want it to continue etching overnight for sure. In fact, I don't really want any of it to continue etching overnight. That's just gross. And that'll happen too. It'll sort of weep little bits of calcium in little bubbles. It's so weird. Oh, the things we do with eggs. They are weird. But a nice paste of baking soda will just neutralize any remaining acid. It's also abrasive, so it'll take off a little bit of shell with it, which is good. I do have some fairly thick areas that I might scrape back a little bit. Scrape off some of the wax. Let it etch in later versions. Later rounds, there will be more etching later. Obviously, because this is not yet done. This is not yet light enough that I can dye it a flaming orange red. Nope, it would look brown. So we're not going to do that yet. More etching will come another day. For now, I'm going to rinse it all off. Going to have a cat come peeling through the kitchen and thankfully not knock everything over. Give it a good rinse. Be careful not to drop it in my slippery hands. And paper towels. Paper towels. We love the paper towels. All right. That's something. That is something.